I don't know how Tamiya does it, but they managed to make some pretty unique kits. Check this little thing out. This looks familiar, I bet, to a lot of you. This is the Lunchbox Mini. Now, we've seen the Lunchbox before. It's probably one of the most iconic Tamiya vehicles out there. And what they've done is basically they're creating all these comical vehicles of their classics. And they've taken a step even farther with this one, where they've shrunken it down. They've made it a wheelie machine. It's an all-new chassis on here. Just a very cool truck. So I think its official name is the Lunchbox Mini. It's the SW-01 chassis. And of course, we're going to go over in detail here. I'm sure there's a lot of Tamiya fans that are really excited about this new release. And I am too. Once I saw it, I'm like, I got to build it. I dropped everything that was in progress here at the workshop and just had to build this thing up. All right, so as I just said, you have to build this up. This is a full build-up kit, like a lot of Tamiya kits are, and this is a really enjoyable building experience. I think it took me about 3 hours of just casual building to build this. The body does come painted, which is very cool. It comes this yellow. It's just one solid color. We've got window decals and everything to show off the windows. The inside is painted white, so it's just a nice vibrant yellow. But everything else on here is decals, and you do have to go and cut out the decals like you normally do with a Tamiya vehicle. And apply them and use a heat gun to kind of push things down a little bit. But it is a very cool looking body. They've got the rear panel kicked up here, which allows battery access and everything. But this is what's pretty neat. So you got two body clips on the side, and then it actually has magnets that hold it in place as well. So let me just pop this off so I can show you guys really quick. So there's two magnets right under here, and they kind of attach to these screws that are on the side plates here. And so that helps secure the body as well. So let me just pop that on. So I guess you could even run it without the body clips. It seems to be pretty solid, but they do give you body clips as well. So that's pretty neat. The body looks pretty awesome. Now let's get to the SW-01 chassis here. So like I mentioned, it's a full build-up. So let me start off with the drivetrain, because the drivetrain is stuffed inside the center of this. And you start off by packing gears inside the two-piece chassis. Actually, it's kind of like a three-piece chassis in total, because then you put some more gears on the outside here, and that's how you get your four-wheel drive drivetrain. You know, kind of like Tamiya's other vehicles, it uses a series of gears to get drive to the front and rear of the vehicle. But inside, all plastic gears in there. There is differentials front and rear. Now these are the star unit differentials that we've seen in the trikes. So they're like a planetary style gear differential. They give you grease, of course. Now the one thing is, they do go and give you bushings. Yes, we know Tamiya always gives us bushings in there. I did go ahead and put the optional ball bearing kit in there. So when I'm overlaying some of the videos of the details, you may see ball bearings. Those are an aftermarket option. So just be aware of that. But again, multiple gears get the power to the front and rear of the vehicle. They have those star unit style axles that go out to the wheels, kind of, again, that we've seen on the trikes before. So again, you know, a little bit of part spin thing going on here, and that's what Tamiya does. And it's cool that they do that, because there's just more availability of the parts that we'll see sticking around for a lot longer. But those axles work pretty well. What I see they do now is they do have a little set screw in them to secure the metal dog bone to the plastic universal. And yeah, they're universals front and rear, which is very cool. They are plastic though, so just be aware of that. So if you want to put a ton of power in here, yeah, it might have a little bit of an issue. They do make an aftermarket motor, and I know this was run on a LiPo during Tamiya testing and stuff. So at least I know it should hold up to some power. Now, speaking of power, it does come with a 370 motor. It gets mounted over here. It goes inside of a little cage, and the pinion gear is just pressed onto the shaft. But there is two options. It comes with the 16-tooth, and then you could get an optional 18-tooth pinion gear if you want to bump up the speed a little bit. All right, so I think that rounds out the drivetrain. You will have to supply the rest of the electronics. So I've got a Hobbywing speed controller in here, and a basic standard servo, and a tactic radio system. Actually, yanked all this stuff out of my Tamiya trike just so I can get this thing going. But that's the electronics, just simple electronics. And you will need a battery, of course, and you know, kind of like the trikes, it's kind of a unique battery in this. I'm just going to stuff my trike battery into here, but you will have to be aware of the battery size when you go and build this thing up. Hopefully you have something in your collection, or maybe your hobby shop has something. All right, let me get back on track here now. Let me talk about the suspension on this. So it's just got some springs for dampers on each corner. It is independent suspension. We've got these lower arms here, and just really big steering knuckles that make up the outside of the suspension. We have an upper arm on the top, and what's really unique about this, I wasn't sure how to explain it, but it's kind of got a rocker style of suspension, and it's integrated into the steering. So we've got standard steering motion, so if you turn right, it turns right. As you can see, it also shifts the suspension on here. So it drops this wheel down a little bit to maintain some control there. It's pretty neat how this is all set up here. So we've got the swinging bell crank system going on in the front here, and kind of jumping around, but it's all kind of integrated into each other. So there's the cranks, and it's got the single pivot up front, adjustable steering links to go out to those knuckles. Just a really neat, well-engineered type of setup here. And that's, I think, what you really have to look at in a lot of Tamiya's vehicles is there's a lot of engineering involved in it, and it's pretty neat some of the stuff that they come up with. All right, and then in the rear, kind of similar suspension to the front. We've got the springs with the steering knuckles, and again, I went and put ball bearings in there, but the axles are supported by bushings with the factory kit. But the rear doesn't have that swinging suspension setup. It's fixed. They put little set screws in there to secure that upper arm so it doesn't pivot. But overall, again, just really nicely engineered. And then the battery cage is separate, gets mounted afterwards, and then two little clips secure the cap that holds the battery in place. So that's really all that's involved in this. The tires on here, you've probably seen these tires before in the Tamiya collection. Same with the wheels. I think the wheels are from the Mini series. Maybe the tires are from the Euro truck. I don't know. Tamiya guys, you feel free to comment what they are in the section below. But they look great with the body on here. And overall, just a really neat, well-engineered truck. Got a wheelie bar out back. Phillips hardware throughout. Just a fun truck. Now, there are some aftermarket options available for it. I'm actually going to show you those in the video, but it's after the action sequence. Let's go have some fun with the Lunchbox Mini. So I'm back from my wheel time with the Tamiya Mini, and it was an interesting experience. This is a very small truck, and so it kind of drives a bit unique, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. So first up, I went and took it to a very large parking lot, thinking I'm just going to go and rip up and down the parking lot, and to be honest with you, this thing is kind of slow out of the box. It's certainly quick enough to pull some wheelies, and it actually rides wheelies for a very long time. But for a large parking lot, this thing is really too small, and so I kind of packed up really quickly and went over to a local park. It has a nice walking trail, a paved walking trail, and had a lot of fun with it there. It was much more at home in a smaller space. So I can see this thing being a lot of fun in driveways, in garages and stuff, and maybe if you have a living room with a hardwood floor, this is where it would be a lot of fun. But again, it's kind of on the slow side, and I knew that going into it. I think it was pretty good for just doing wheelies and just driving in a nice tight area. Now there is a lot of steering on this little truck, and there's a number of reasons why. It's got a very short wheelbase. The instructions tell you to build it with a lot of toe in, and I actually checked with Tamiya. I'm like, is it supposed to have a lot of toe in? They said, yeah, out of the box it's supposed to. And then the way it leans, the way the front suspension leans to try to keep it stable, it turns like very, very tight. It basically turns on a dime, and because of that, it rolls over a lot. So you kind of just have to do minimal steering inputs to get this thing turned around. And after a little while, I got a little frustrated because I kept flipping this thing over. So I went and after the video was done, after shooting the action that you saw, I went and I set all the tie rods so all the wheels were at 0, even the rear, so front and rear at 0. And once I did that, the truck was a lot easier to drive, a lot easier to get around corners, I should say. And even when I was wheeling with this, coming down off of a wheelie when there's a lot of toe in, it would kind of dart to one side and roll over. And with everything zeroed out, it just handled a lot better. But the big factor here is the wheelies. This thing is so much fun to wheelie, and that's really what I spent most of my time doing. You know, it had enough power to get the wheels up and just carry long wheelies, which is a lot of fun. So overall, it was pretty cool. It needs a little bit more speed to it. And then with the option parts that to me it does have, I think it could be a lot more fun. And so that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to go and install the Quicker Sport Tune 370 motor. And then this is the upper arm connectors here. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to steer the van while it's wheeling. And I think that's going to be a lot more fun for this. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to show you guys a little bit more action, and I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, there is a very noticeable performance difference with the new motor in there and the upper control arm connectors. It is just a lot more drivable with these bars on the top here. It really allows the van to kind of lean into the corners and keeps the wheels on the ground a lot better. You could drive around a lot quicker with it. And speaking of quicker, it is a lot faster with this Sport Tune motor in there. It is a lot more fun. I mean, it was pretty fun in stock form, but it is an absolute blast with this motor. And these two options, I would really highly recommend getting them or planning to get them as soon as possible when you get this kit. I think you're going to have a lot more fun with it. Beyond just being able to control it better with the upper links, it does allow you to steer while you're in a wheelie, which is very, very cool, and just adds to the fun factor of this little van. I mean, overall, Tamiya just did an awesome job with this. And it's just a fun RC car, and that's what it's really all about, and that's what Tamiya develops here. Love the Lunchbox Mini. If you are a Tamiya fan, you definitely need this in your collection.